to start like we usually start, since Sukkot, since the war of Simchas Torah, with 2 chapters of Tehillim. So first we'll start with chapter 20 and chapter 150. And if you give tzedakah, Lam Natzayach, Mizmor LaDavid, Gancha Denebiyam Sarah, Yisakaf Koshem, and Yaakov, Yishlach Ezrecha Mikodesh, Mitzion, Yisadaka, Yiskar Kol Mechasecha, Vaylaska Yadash Nesela, Tenecha Chilvavecha, V'chalasascha Yimalei, Nanana B'shuasecha, V'shem Leheinu Nidgol, Yimali Adinoi Kol Mishalisecha, Ato Yadat, Yigesh Yadnei Mashiach, Yanei, Umishmei Katshoy, B'gurois Yesha Yaminoi, Eila Barechav, Eila Basus, Menachnu B'shem Adinoi Leheinu Naskir, Hima Karov Nafalu, Menachnu Kamnu, V'nisoida, Adinoi Yeshia, Melech Yaneinu, V'yayim Kareinu. And then chapter 150, a song of thanks to Hashem. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kadshay, hallelujah, Bekia Uzay, hallelujah, Big Barasav, hallelujah, Karev Gudloy, hallelujah, Beseka Shofar, hallelujah, Neva V'chinar, hallelujah, Beseif Machal, hallelujah, Minim Vulgav, hallelujah, Betzotz L'Shama, hallelujah, Betzotz L'Yisroel, Koil Neshama, hallelujah, hallelujah. Have a pushka.
150.
Money in the pushka.
Okay.
Pass it around, coins, dollar bills.
And let's start with the Gemara. The very Gemara we left off with on Monday, we're at the holding the last Gemara right before the Mishnah, talking about several mitzvos which have to be done only during the daytime. Daytime is from sunrise to sunset, not from light to dark, but sunrise to sunset. The Chachamim, the sages, added on the time when it starts to get light, called the Loisa Shachar, the morning star, till Tseisa Kachavim, till 3 stars come out, and that's legally completely night, for many aspects of the day and many aspects of the night. And we were trying to find out where we know this from. Where is the source? First, we brought a source from the Torah. It says that Hashem, on the first day of creation, He called the light day. So we see that light means daytime. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, it says Hashem called the darkness night. Let darkness start from sunset. Let the night start from sunset. So rather we say, we bring a proof from when the Jews returned to the land of Eretz Yisrael at the beginning of the second temple, second Beis Hamikdash. The Jews under Nehemiah built a large wall, which on the screen brought many remnants of the wall that you can still see. And the Jews built a large wall, but there were many enemies of the Jewish people, which were not pleased with the Jews coming back to the Holy Land. Sounds familiar? Yep. And so they had to take up arms. So they had one, and in Nehemiah, he describes how they had one hand was on a spear and the other hand was on a dowel building, and it took turns sleeping. Some people would stand guard while others watched. And it says we would stand guard and watch. The night was for a guard and the day was for work. Now, back in the day, when they didn't have huge spotlights and they didn't have headlights and lamps, and didn't have gasoline-powered generators or any of that, they would start working from as soon as it started getting light. And everyone woke up right before it started to get light because they maximized every hour, every minute of daylight. It didn't wait for when it's officially sunrise, the sun comes up. It wouldn't wait for 7:19 a.m. From 6 12 a.m., the earliest time as possible, they would already start doing whatever work they could. So from there we see that b'diavad, alosa shachar, when it starts to become light, could be considered to be day. For it says that the daytime was for us work. Daytime means even before the sun comes up. Right? Any of you here climbed Masada?
What?
You ever climbed Masada?
Oh, no.
Masada in Israel, famous Masada, the fortress.
Mm-hmm.
They say you shouldn't do it during the day because it's baking hot.
Mm.
But you shouldn't do it by night because it's very steep. So the time to do it is to do it right after Alois HaShachar, right when it starts to get light, before sunrise. And it's a big thing. That's when it's the most busy. So you're talking about in the summer, it could be at 4:30 in the morning. And that's where tons of people are climbing up the mountain. There's a special path called the snake path, I think it's called, where the Romans used to send messengers. And that's how you climb the mountain.
Where is Rome today? Just the city.
Correct.
We're a whole country.
And then you come to the top of Masada and you watch the sunrise from the top. And so when I was in Israel, I had my turn to do it too, right? So you climb to the top and then you watch the sunrise from the top, right? It's still light before that, but the sunrise is a while after it becomes light. So as it says, the night was to guard and the day was to watch, was to work. So this demonstrates to us that day starts from dawn, not from sunrise. The Gemara clarifies further. If you have an art scroll, it's 20b1.
20b1.
Correct. My the Omer. Why did the Gemara bring two verses? Reb Zeder brought two verses to show how daytime starts from dawn. From Nehemiah, we have verse 15 and verse 16. Verse 15 says, we were doing the work from the rise of the morning, from dawn, until the stars appeared. Trying to get every single moment of work in as possible, to work as long as possible. So we're doing work from dawn till 3 stars appeared. And then we brought a second verse, verse 16. It says, and the day was for work, the night was for guarding. Why bring two verses? Either one of them would have been sufficient, seemingly, that daytime could be valid, legally daytime from dawn as opposed to sunrise. Ask the Gemara, why was it necessary to bring two verses, a second verse, to show us how daytime can start legally, halachically, from Alois HaShachar, from dawn? So the Gemara answers, because we need the second verse to refute the following argument. You might think to yourself to say that perhaps if I'd only have one verse which says that the people worked to build a wall from Alois HaShachar, from the first rays of the sun. There's no proof that the daytime starts from Alois, from dawn. Because maybe they just started working before daybreak, before the day legally started. It says we worked from dawn. It doesn't say we worked from the day in the first verse. It doesn't use the word yom. It doesn't use the word day. It says we were working from dawn till 3 stars came out. Now, only the second verse says day. So you need both of them. One to teach you that what time of day they were working from dawn, and the second one to teach you that the time that they were working is called yom, called day, and therefore from dawn is already day b'di'evad. And you might think, so when the sun comes up, it's daytime. When the sun goes down, it's nighttime. And what about all of the gray zone from before sunrise and after sunset, when it's still light and it's outside? You might think that these are very dedicated workers. They do lots of overtime. Instead of working only the whole day, they came extra while it's still night to start working, and they stay after it's dark to work even longer. So they're very dedicated workers, and they're doing extra work. I'm sure they got time and a half, right? Tashma, and therefore the verse comes to teach you, teaching you that the night, the second verse number 16, it says that the night was time for guarding, and the day was a time for working. So from there we see that the daytime starts from Alois HaShachar, from dawn, and not from Netzachama, not from sunrise. Therefore, if your bris takes place at 6:45 in the morning, is it a valid bris?
45 in the morning?
Yes, it's after Alois,
Ah.
before Netz. Chatchil, you should do it later, correct. If a bris is done by night, then they have to do a tafas dam, a drop of blood for the bris again by day.
Oh, the baby's gonna be so happy.
It can be done whenever, it's a drop, it doesn't have to have that much pain. If it's an adult, they don't have to take off work. Even if someone who received a bris in a non-halachic manner also has to do a tafas dam, a drop of blood. So this past Mishnah, we mentioned several mitzvahs that could be done only during the day. For example, going to the mikvah is only during the day. Having a bris milah only during the day. Reading the daytime Megillah only during the day. This coming Mishnah that we're up to now, so if you have a Art Scroll 20b1, about 12 lines from the top of the page, this coming Mishnah will now list off many more mitzvahs that you can only do during the day.
Oh.
You can't do during the night. Could you think of some mitzvahs that could be done only during the day? Shacharis. It's actually one of the examples.
Actually, the daytime kiddush
Correct. Saying Hallel.
in Hallel. What's that?
Although it's once a year, we do Hallel by night, which is on Pesach, and we'll discuss that. Seeing a rainbow can only be done by day.
That one I'm sure.
Pretty short.
Also can't be done on the moon either.
All right, so we're going to have a list of mitzvahs that can be done during the day. Kiddush Levana is an interesting one. Could you sanctify the new moon during the day? This morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a big bright moon over here, over Squirrel Hill.
Winter
You're supposed to do it only at night because that's when the moon shines. But if it's a very last time, I don't know, it's up for discussion. I think it's a matter of dissent. If you can do it, there's bringing all the karbanas in the Beis HaMikdash only by day, and we're going to list off many different types of karbanas. 20b1. 20b1.
Oh, I'm 20b2. That's not good.
Yeah, because you're ahead, thank God. I think it's very davening musaf, shaking the lulav and esrog can only be done by day. Hearing shofar. Then we're going to list off some mitzvahs that can only be done by night. Many mitzvahs can be done only by night. For example, eating matzah has to be done at night, right? For the mitzvah. Counting the omer
Can only be done at night.
only with a bracha can only be done at night.
Well, so with the bracha, yeah.
Right. If you didn't do it by night, you should do it by day. And then we're going to just go to the general rule that every mitzvah, which is daytime, is only during the day, nighttime only during the night. Ideal to do it from sunrise to sunset. B'diavad, after the fact, or in extenuating circumstances, could be done earlier from dawn. When I was in the Eretz Yisrael in Israel, so here we have the 4th of July. It's a holiday. It's a Yom Tov. So what does every person do? They make a barbecue, a cookout, on the 4th of July. In Israel, for them, their holiday is Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day. Right? You want to do Independence Day? Fine.
They have bones.
What?
They have bones.
They have bones?
Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yeah, I'm saying the Arabs call it the Nakba, all that, right? Turek Karta fast that day. And they say Slichus. But there's many religious Zionist groups which say Hallel on that day. Some of them say with a bracha. and some of them say Hallel by night as well.
Mm.
So we'll see in this Mishnah, we'll have a discussion about saying Hallel by night. If, when, how, and as we go through it, we'll bring out the Arizal, idea of discussing the saying Hallel at night. And we only say Hallel by day, the sole exception being the night of Pesach, the night of the Seder. And Chutz La'aretz, it's 2 nights. So we say it in Shul, we say Hallel, and we say Hallel during the Seder. Because it's a special din, a special halacha of the Korban Pesach. And Korban Pesach has to be brought with praises to Hashem. That's why we say Hallel. It's a special din of Korban Pesach. But Hallel by itself, by definition, is something by day.
Now, did you say actually the Jewish part of fasts
Correct.
on Yom HaTzvut, right?
Correct.
That means they're celebrating Yom HaTzvut, except there's a fast day.
If somebody has a fast day, they say Slichos, correct. There was a couple years ago in Israel, a law that came out, Israel, a country that it is. How about you're not allowed to, it was more of an anti-Arab thing, meaning you can't have, it's called the Nakba. You can't do, they call it, the Nakba is like the disaster, sort of, right? That's how they celebrate Yom HaTzmaut. And so they made it illegal to burn Israeli flags and to do that stuff. But that means also in Turek Arta could get prosecuted for the same thing.
Well, the interesting thing is that whether you can burn an American flag, because it's controversial, but in the United States, actually, you can't actually ban a holiday. It would violate freedom of speech.
Interesting.
Sure.
Let's continue the Gemara. We'll read about all these things. The Mishnah is now going to list off a list of mitzvahs, a list of different things, and we'll go through them one by one. And then the Gemara will go through the source of every single one. It's going to give you first a list of mitzvahs that could be done only by day, and then a list of mitzvahs which could be done only by night, and then give you a general rule. And we're almost done the parak, almost done the chapter. About just one more amud, half a dot. Says the Mishnah, Kol hayom kasher l'kriyas Megillah. Although it is preferable to do called Zerizim Makdimin Lemitzvos. You know what that means? Do it mitzvah as soon as possible.
Yeah. It's actually they like go towards the
Correct.
mitzvah fast.
Correct. It's a mitzvah to do everything the first possible moment. We learn it from Avraham Avinu. Avram says, Vayashkem Avram Baboker. When he came to sacrifice his son Yitzchak, he woke up early in the morning. Because he had a mitzvah from Hashem, and he went to do it with joy, just to do a mitzvah of Hashem. So, although there's a rule, you should try doing mitzvahs as soon as possible, but it doesn't say that it could only be done in the morning. It can be done throughout the entire day. Kol hayom kasher l'kriyas Megillah. The entire day is kosher to hear the Megillah. Now, the Mishnah only lists Megillah reading. It would also apply to the other mitzvahs of the day as well, which is giving matanas of yonim, gifts of charity to the poor. You're allowed to do it at night, but make sure to also do it during the day. If a poor man comes to you by night to ask for money, don't say, "Oh, I'm waiting for the morning," and eating a big meal and giving gifts of food to your friend. You can do it all by night, but make sure to do it again during the day. However, the Mishnah only lists one, the Ritva says, because it's all part of the general group, which is the mitzvahs of Purim all have to be done during the day, not by night. We learned this from last Mishnah, from Daf Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Daf Daled, that we read the Megillah by night as well. But really, the mitzvahs of Purim could be done all have to be done during the day. The Kriyas Hallel, reading the Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, on Yom Tif and Chanukah. One is obligated to read the Hallel, and we can do it anytime during the day. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be done specifically in the morning. If someone forgot to say Hallel by Shachris, you could do it the entire day. L'tkiya shofar, and for blowing the shofar could be blown throughout the entire day. On Rosh Hashanah, when we blow the shofar. can't do it by night. Also, we blow the shofar on Yom Kippur during the year of Yovel, has to be done only by day. There's one time we blow a shofar, has to be done only at night, which is Matzah Yom Kippur.
Yes,
Right?
indeed.
It has to be done after Yom Kippur leaves, after Yom Kippur is out.
But that's only rabbinical, right?
Correct. This is rabbinical, but biblical shofar in Shoshana and Yovel, the 50th year, that has to be done only during the day. Ulinetilas lulav, and for shaking the lulav and esrog.
Oh, yeah, only during the day.
Right, it has to be done by day. We're going to bring a source. It says l'chachtem lechem b'yom harishon. You have to take the lulav on the first day. So from there, we're going to see that lulav and esrog on Sukkot has to be done only during the day.
So I wonder actually, as far as actually, you have in Israel the Samaritans, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the big, those are enemies actually who tried to prevent us from building the base Mikdash. So they traditionally says you only go according to the Torah, although they changed the Torah. The big thing is to have hard reason be the holy mountain competition.
Mm-hmm.
So they said you only go according to the written Torah, second like the Sadukim. So the question is, how do they interpret? Do they shake the lulav, the esrog, actually like interpreting the word day to be day or night, or do they do like us and only do during the day?
Good question. I don't know.
Yep.
I mentioned this once before.
Mhm.
And a great grandmother. Her name was Karina.
Ah.
Her last name was Itkin. Oh, yeah, could have guessed. And she lived in a town in Russia called Nevel, which was the whole town was basically Hasidim. Right. There was non-Jews in the town as well. And the only Jews in town were Hasidim. There's no such thing as someone who's not a Hasid. To the extent, when my grandfather was a little child, and they were told that there was a war going on, I think World War I, and refugees were coming, and in the train station there's somebody who's coming who was this guy's it was called a Masnagid, who's not a Chassid, and all the kids of the village came and ran to see what he looks like. See, who knows what he looks like? Does he have horns? They never saw such a thing before, right? And the person walked out and he looked just like them and he talked like them. They were so surprised.
I mean, it's just like it reminds me of we used to visit in actually the Borough Park. My relative was somewhere else, right?
Correct.
We used to actually consider, right? And one time we were either visiting actually Borough Park or we were visiting actually maybe Miami, but anyway, it was actually Friday night, and we went over to a Litvish shul,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an area I'm sitting, and I look around and say, "Wow, this is a shul,
Yes.
but these are Litvaks." Wow.
Well, you also, yeah.
Like,
I hear, yeah, similar thing. Anyway, so in the town, after the communists took over, so they had a very hard time throughout the whole Russia getting for Sukkot, lulav and esrog. In the city, there was like one or maybe two, I think one for the whole entire city, one lulav and esrog. And so everyone came to shul in the morning in order to shake the lulav and esrog. But there were certain people, like her, she was blind, she couldn't make it to shul. And the shamish of the shul used to go around to the houses of everybody in the city who couldn't make it to shul, they could shake lulav and esrog at home. And being that she was very pious, very devout, very frum, she would not eat anything before shaking lulav and esrog. And by the time the shamish got to her house, the shamish of the shul was very late in the day, almost late in the afternoon by the time he got around to her house after making all of his stops. So she wouldn't eat anything until late in the afternoon, until he came to shake lulav and esrog with her. She wouldn't eat at all. It looks like Baruch Hashem, that diet helped her because she passed away at the age of 94 or something.
Who is this?
Great grandmother. She passed away in the 1930s, in her 90s.
Oh, wow.
So Baruch Hashem, I guess that diet helped her.
That's your glory for whatever you read about.
Yeah. So her name, there was a very old man named Rabashkin, who grew up in the town of Nevel. Says, "Oh, I remember your grandmother Krena." Krena, oh, my great grandmother. And he told me this story. So the entire day, you're allowed to shake lulav and esrog. Hence, we go Mitzvos the entire day. You can shake lulav and esrog till it gets dark. Next, Tfilas musafin, davening musaf. There is an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda which you can only daven musaf until about 11 a.m. Because, we'll go through it in the Gemara later on. But it says you can only daven musaf till the 5th hour, 11 a.m. Davening is a 4th hour, and musaf because it should be done right after davening.
We obviously don't pass you like
You don't pass it like that. Halacha is musaf can be done the entire day.
because I never read about anybody passing like it nowadays.
Correct. But the musaf prayer could be offered in the Beis HaMikdash the entire day. Now, not the entire day in actuality, because the last carbon of the day is called the Tomash Bein Harbayim, the evening sacrifice, and that had to take place as a final carbon also during the day. So the musaf carbon, the musaf is an extra sacrifice, an extra carbon brought in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos and Yom Tif. So therefore, it had to be done not by sunset, it had to be done at least an hour before, because it takes about half an hour for a carbon to be processed. Could be up to an hour, depending how quickly it's done in the Beis HaMikdash. A carbon musaf would not be able to be brought the entire day. However, musaf could be davened until sunset, because b'diavad, after the fact, if, let's say, in the Beis HaMikdash, for whatever reason, they forgot to bring the carbon musaf that day, possible. I mean, I could see cases like this happening easily. For example, let's say it's the first day of the month of Tishrei, or first day of Rosh Chodesh, and the witnesses only came late in the afternoon, right? And the witnesses only came. Now, if the witnesses come and say they saw a new moon, they make it Rosh Chodesh right away. What happens if they already brought the carbon Tomash Bein Harbayim, the last carbon of the day? So what the Beis Din would do is that they would sort of hold off the witnesses, try delaying them, ask them questions, making them crazy. You sure you saw that? They would have a big feast, go eat a salami sandwich, come back in 20 minutes while we deliberate, and try to push it off. If, for whatever reason, all the deliberations and pushing off, and they didn't do it, and so already after the carbon Tomash Bein Harbayim, the evening sacrifice, the last carbon of the day was brought, suddenly the witnesses came, and now we know today is Rosh Chodesh, it's the first of the month, and now it's time to bring, today was really Rosh Chodesh, now we have to bring the carbon musaf. It has to be brought now, you don't have a choice about it. Even though it's already after the Tomash Bein Harbayim, after the last evening sacrifice, you have to bring now a carbon musaf. So it's possible, there is a possibility that a carbon musaf will be done after the Tomash Bein Harbayim, meaning we daven mincha corresponding to the evening sacrifice, right, the late afternoon sacrifice. So if somebody daven shachris and then mincha didn't daven musaf, they could daven musaf after, because musaf, there are times it could be done after. So but the evidence after the fact, it's allowed. And ulu musafin, in addition to bring a carbon musaf, the extra sacrifice for Shabbos and Yom Tiv, in the Beis HaMikdash was also could be done throughout the entire day. Okay, so we'll pause over here. The Gemara. We'll continue now with Kunteres Umayin. Yeah, you know the famous story. The Rav says, the Chabaniks always come late and Lipaks always come on time. So they got married once. Lived back in a chassid, and they came every now. They started coming exactly half hour late.
Compromise too.
Yeah. We're holding in Maimer Chafei Perek Beis, Maimer 25, chapter.
No, it's usually you should do the work to prove it, but was the first time I've seen, that he's consciously
Above.
aware actually that, oh, these people are Litvax and they look like Litvax.
They're not real Litvaks. A real Litvak says Litvak, Lithuania.
We're the Litvish because we literally, it's just amazing. Wow. Strange creatures from another planet.
Chapter 2.
Okay.
Now, Dovi,
Yeah,
you're walking right now. You're walking on upright. You're walking on four.
I'm walking upright.
Walking upright, correct? The famous thing when famous joke. What when they're born has four legs? Well, in the beginning of their life, in the middle of their life, they have two legs. At the end of their life, they have three legs.
I give up.
A human, a person. In the beginning of their life, they crawl.
Mhm.
Later on, they walk on two, and at the end of their life, they have a stick.
Oh,
They walk on three. Hashem made a person upright. When it says Hashem asa adam yashar, Hashem made them go straight. Your word yashar means, besides for straight, it also means, besides for upright, it means on the straight path, on the good path. Hashem, when He created us, He created us already with pre-programmed to do everything good. Your car, everything is perfect with it when you get it, until you start braking or still you start driving erratically. Everything should work just fine. So Hashem has given people the ability to discern and to know what's right and what's wrong. Naturally, people are attuned to the truth, to know what's good and what the truth is, and if someone chooses the opposite, it's because there's usually an outside influence or outside stimulus pushing them to do something which is not good. But naturally, people are attuned usually to do good. And to explain this, Hashem made a person upright. As Rebbe Rashab says, that it's a huge kindness that Hashem did. That a person can always look up to the heaven. Unlike the animal kingdom, which always is looking downward, Hashem makes a person to always look upwards. We always could see something is beyond us.
It's like a gorilla actually walks using its arms. Yeah. Its thumb is different than too.
Right. Hashem also created people to naturally want to do the right thing. And being we're given the tools that Hashem has given to us, a person should have recognized and known where the goodness and what the truth is, where the good lies. How what's really good in the world is what is spiritual goodness, and to attach and cleave and come closer to Hashem. That is what's really good. And his Torah and his mitzvos, and everything else is evil and the exact opposite. If you meet somebody, tell them, "Oh, tell me about your father, your grandfather." What are they going to tell you? He opened the shul every morning. He was, such a good Jew, such a this, such a that. Are they going to tell you that he, worked so many hours in his office job? Are they going to tell you that what legacy you leave for you, right, is your spiritual legacy generally? People have a realization that what is goodness is really Torah, learning Torah, doing mitzvos of Hashem. And the opposite is not good. And everything the Yetzer Hara tells us to the opposite is a bunch of baloney, nonsense. So people naturally are tuned and really should have known this. Because Hashem has given us a spiritual sensitivity naturally. So now the question comes, how is it even possible that somebody could listen to the Yetzer Hara, be persuaded by him to do something that's not a mitzvah, or not to spend your time learning? How could it happen? Or we have someone who to blame. Who do we have to blame? Adam, the first man. That he ate from the tree of knowledge. And when he ate from the tree of knowledge, like we said before, he lowered our perception. Right? So now instead of arguing about you could say billions and trillions, instead we're arguing about pennies. Right? He lowered the whole standard. Instead of having our entire focus in life should be on a much higher spiritual level, he lowered it down to now to be on a physical level, physical plane. And then he mixed up good and not good. And that's how it's possible how someone with the sensitivity of a Jewish person, of an neshama, could do a sin and listen to his nefesh habahamis, his animal soul, or to the Yetzer Hara. Let's talk about the Yetzer Hara for a little bit. Let me ask you a question. Was there a Yetzer Hara before Adam sinned?
Yes, but it was outside of himself.
It's outside of himself. Very good.
I learned that from the Rambam. Because the Rambam says it's like, he ate, he brought it within himself. Now he has his desires, whereas previously it was outside of himself.
Exactly.
Very
good. Yetzer Hara was around well before as well. Yetzer Hara was around before man sinned. But as Dovi said, this Yetzer Hara was an external thing. It wasn't inside of the person. The Alter Rebbe used to daven very quickly, first thing in the morning. As soon as the earliest time of davening was allowed, he would daven. He usually daven very quickly.
And who is this? The
Alter Rebbe. The Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, he would start davening earliest time, but he would daven for many, many hours. And he would think and he would meditate the greatness of Hashem. Well, there was a chassid named Reb Shmuel Munkus. He was known to be a prankster or a joker.
Munkus or Munkus?
Munkus.
Munkus.
Named after his Munkus was his mother. Her mother's name was Manya, I think. And so the nickname is Munka, so they call him Munkus. Munkus, his mother. His father, I think, passed away when he was a child, and his mother raised him, something like that. So he's called Reb Shmuel Munkus. A lot of famous anecdotes. He's very witty, very silly or funny in many ways. But with all that, and when you grow up, suddenly you become surprised to hear this. He was actually one of the greatest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, to the extent he was called a tzaddik of the Tanya. We've heard of the Beinoni of the Tanya, great chassidim like Itcha the Masmid, David Haradakar. These were a Beinoni of the Tanya. The Beinoni of the Tanya is that they're in control of every single thought, speech, and action that they do. It's a tremendous amount of avodah, of work. Can't waste any time, otherwise you're not a Beinoni. You're already on the level of a Rasha. Rasha V'Toivloi. To become a Beinoni of the Tanya, it's a constant struggle, battle. No downtime at all. Why are they a Beinoni? Because they still have urges. His heart is still around. So he was a tzaddik of the Tanya, they say. And he used to teach a lot of lessons to different people in different types of ways. Sometimes very silly types of ways. So one time in Shmuel Munkus, when there was a chasana in Zlobin, a great wedding of the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, the granddaughter of Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, they got married to each other. And he comes running to the Alter Rebbe, and he tells Alter Rebbe, you're mechutun. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak didn't daven yet. He's still taking his time davening. You're already after davening. He davened so quickly. Alter Rebbe says, how could you compare me to my mechutun, to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdichev? Him, he's a great tzaddik. So therefore, whenever he comes to daven to Hashem, the gates of Shemayim open up for him, are open to him. So therefore, he could daven slowly, properly, with kavanah. By me, I'm not as great of it. Unfortunately, I'm not like him. So I have to go when the gates are open. When everyone else is going in the morning, their tefillos are going up to Shemayim. I could sneak in as well together with them. I have to daven the earliest time. Then he ran to Levi Yitzchak Berdichev, and it's already 10 o'clock in the morning, and he hasn't davened yet, and he's sitting with his pipe, contemplating, learning with a sefer in front of him, a sefer of Kabbalah, and he says, Levi Yitzchak, Holy Rebbe, what's with you? Your Mechutun, the Alter Rebbe, has already davened many hours before, and you here it's already 10 o'clock in the morning, you haven't davened yet? And he says, what could I do? He says, my Mechutun is such a tzaddik, such a great person, that he's ready to daven, he's ready to connect to Hashem at any moment, and therefore he could daven right away in the morning. By me, unfortunately, my Yetzer Hara comes and fights with me, and I get stuck. I have to work on myself until I'm ready to daven. It takes so long, A chassid of the Alter Rebbe named Zalman Zezmer, before he became a chassid, he used to daven with the kavanas of the Arizal. It would take him a long time to daven. And he had a friend of his who learned together with him, two major Talmidei Chachamim, two major Torah scholars. You could discuss the greatness of Zalman Zezmer another time. After he became a chassid, he started davening much longer. And he says, wow, how come davening started taking much longer? So there's a similar story with the Maggid Mizrich. Maggid Mizrich says, before I used to learn about the levels, now I'm actually traveling from place to place. But the answer he said is that when you're davening, and he says, you should daven much faster. And he gave him an example. Let's say you're traveling, you have a wagon driver, you're a passenger in a wagon, and you're traveling on a highway, and then some highwaymen come and they want to hold up the wagon. Shouldn't you try running away from the wagon from the highwaymen as fast as possible? You should whip the horses, try going as quick as possible to outrun them, to get away from them. He says, if you're davening and Yetzer Hara is coming to disturb you, you should try going as quick as possible in order that the Yetzer Hara shouldn't disturb you. Meaning, if you daven long, you have time to, your mind can wander here, can wander there. But if you're davening, only focusing on davening, and you're moving in davening, then there's no time for your mind to wander. So why daven long? And he said, you're right. If your mashal will be right. In your mashal, in your example that you gave, the highwayman is outside the wagon, and he's trying to get inside the wagon. But what happens if the highwayman is already inside the wagon? And now he's with you, he's inside the wagon, and now you have to struggle, you have to throw him out. So then it doesn't help to go fast. You have to go slowly and fight with him to try throwing him out of the wagon. He says, if I didn't have any machshava zaras, foreign thoughts, so then they should be outside. The Yetzer Hara is outside of me, so then I could daven quick. But once the Yetzer Hara is inside of me, it's a struggle to always work on my Yetzer Hara. So this, that a person could listen to the Yetzer Hara, is because the Yetzer Hara is inside of us. Why? How is the Yetzer Hara inside of us? Because once Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, became a mix-up of Toiv V'Ra. Al pasuk vayitzer, as our sages have said in Meschta Brachos, Taf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, it says in the Torah, Hashem created the person. B'shnei yodin. The word vayitzer could have been written with one yud. The word vayitzer is written with two yuds, and Hashem created man. Why does it have two yuds? Yud stands for Yetzer. Yetzer means inclination. Person has a Yetzer Toiv and a Yetzer Hara, a good inclination and evil inclination. Gemara says, Shnei Yetzarim. Why does a Yud of Hashem created him have two Yuds? Because Hashem created man with two inclinations, a Yetzer Toiv and a Yetzer Hara. Heliki. When Hashem created man, the man was created with a godly sensitivity. His perception was only spiritual things. As we said before, in the name of the Rambam, his knowledge at that point was only intellectual. And he did not perceive so-called popular values. What's the values out there on the street? Adam wasn't perceiving. He wasn't up with the latest trends. He was intensely sensitive to godly matters. When after he ate from the tree of knowledge, everything changed radically. His natural sensitivities became intense. He started understanding and became aware of physical things, how he's feeling. And then he started becoming aware of all the natural and material phenomena. The hergesh hazeh, and this material sensitivity, that's what causes him to have a lack of godly sensitivity. He's not sensitive or excited when it comes to something godly, because he's very excited, much more sensitive when it comes to something ungodly. To know and sense its true welfare, as we have noted. There's a mashal that's brought. There was one time, I don't know, could be the story is true, I have no idea. Let's say during the Holocaust, right? And so you have a family which had to go and hide somewhere. They found a cave in the forest and they were hiding. And the only thing, they ran out of food. And so they went around and they found some edible grasses in the area they could eat. And that's all they had to eat. And he had the old grandfather, who himself was all the time in the cave, and he had his grandchildren who were with him. They were bringing and making sure he had what to eat. So now, one day, the grandchildren come all happy to the grandfather, and they say, "We have good news to tell you." He said, "What's the good news?" They say, we see every day we're eating these grasses, and every day our stomachs would hurt us. We get stomach aches because we're not used to it. But now our stomach stopped hurting. Now we're used to it already. Now we don't have any more stomach aches after eating these grasses.
Yeah.
My grandfather, instead of being happy, started to cry. He says, "Why are you crying?" He says, "Till now, I thought that at least you're looking forward to when you could finally leave. But now you became used to these grasses. So now you don't even have you already forgot what it's like to live a regular life." Right? So it's a mashal for before the Chet Sadas, before we were living a regular life. Now, when we're involved in trying to get ahead and and pay a credit card bill before the end of the month, that's a different level of focus than when we had before the Chet Sadas, before the sin of the tree of knowledge. And there's only very few people in history who are on the level where this tree of knowledge does not affect them at all in a revealed way, where their look was a godly look. This was called the spirit of foolishness, which comes from the Yetzer Hara, from the godly soul, Shemitzad the animal soul. Shemitzad the Yetzer Hara, He's so overwhelmed with awareness of physical things, and it changes his perspective entirely. And and God forbid he falls lower and lower. And if person will fail to conduct themselves with a honest evaluation. This is called the foolishness of this world. Inferior to reason. It's called l'mayla min hadas, superior to reason, beyond reason. And there's it's called l'mata min hadas, inferior to reason. Both of them are shtus. Both of them are extremism, if to use a contemporary word, but it's to either extreme. So the opposite is the folly of goodness, the foolishness, extremism in holiness. Also not acting in a rational manner. Going beyond comprehension. Right? There's many stories. You can have a list. Right? The Rebbe said that certain people who pledged to give tzedakah a huge amount of money, much more than they were at that time even able to give, but because they said they're going to do it, Hashem opened up the pathways for it. One example is that the Rebbe said that there is the Shailas and Shuvas, the responses of the Tzemach Tzedek, wanted to be, which were the Friedrich Rebbe wanted to print it, and there was someone who undertook upon themselves to donate the entire cost of the printing, pay for it. Now, this person did not have a lot of money. He was a taxi driver, and he didn't have the means to pay for the whole thing. But Hashem opened up channels for him, and because he took upon himself to do it, he was able to, Baruch Hashem, fill his pledge, and those channels were open, and he was able to have a lot more money to live and to live off of as well. And there's many more examples. Maybe tomorrow I'll give another one. But this is called shtus shel l'mayla min hadas, the idea of foolishness above reasoning, going beyond reasoning to do a mitzvah.